So tonight we're going to talk about procrastination. And after tonight, you will never procrastinate again because I'm going to show you what happened in my own life that helped me to deal with procrastination. Because procrastination is a dream killer. As a matter of fact, if you don't fix your procrastination, there's nothing else you learn in life that matters. This is how important this conversation is. If you don't fix your procrastination, it does not matter how many degrees you have. It does not matter how much you learn. Nothing else matters because procrastination kills everything in front of it. And what helped me to deal and to still deal with procrastination, because it's not something that you overcome once and then forever. You are still going to, and you are going to see why. So what really helped me was to understand the brain level, to understand at the brain level what procrastination is, what happens to your brain when you procrastinate. So that when I understood that, it was scary. And that's why I said you will never procrastinate again after tonight, after understanding this. So bear with me. It's going to be very technical, a little technical, but I'm going to make it very easy for you to understand. It's going to be, because you really need to understand it at the brain level. So I'm going to be mentioning some things that sound technical based on the researches that I have gone through, but I'm going to make it very easy. I'm going to make it very easy for you to understand. So we are talking about what actually happens to your physical brain. This is science. What actually happens to your physical brain when you procrastinate? When you understand this, you will never treat procrastination as a small bad habit again. I know a man in his 50s. In his 50s, he admitted to me that procrastination is generational in his family. He procrastinates, and this man, I know him personally. This man is incredibly gifted, very talented, highly knowledgeable, very, very talented. And when you hear him speak, very brilliant. But do you know, for the almost 40 years that I've known this man, he's literally been dancing in one spot. I mean, this happens before me. I mean, this terrifies me because it shows me how dangerous procrastination can be. So you might have you might have all the parameters, all the checklists in your life ticked. Highly educated, beautiful, married, gifted, and then at the end of it, all those things will be wasted opportunities, wasted because of this one terrible thing called procrastination. And I discovered that procrastination is a major root cause of financial struggle. Biggest problem, one of the biggest problems, financial problems, procrastination. You don't take action when you should. You don't save when you should. You don't invest when you should. You don't receive coaching when you should. You keep saying, I will do it tomorrow. And so there's a very strong connection between procrastination and poverty. Okay. So here is the real cost of I will do it later. Because one of the best things you can do for yourself is to eliminate that I will do it later mentality. I will do it tomorrow mentality. That I will do it tomorrow mentality has destroyed so many lives. So imagine this, you sit down to work on something important. So pay particular attention. Let me describe the process, then I will now go to the brain level. So you sit down to work on something important. It may be a big proposal. It may be a course that you want to create. It may be an exam, a certification that you want to pass. It might be a plan to fix your money. It might be even something to do for your spouse. And so you open your laptop and you stare at the screen. You see, you have this proposal to deliver in 24 hours. And then you are staring at the screen. So you notice your chest tightens because you look at how massive, this thing you're about to do is. And you feel the discomfort. You literally feel the discomfort. You feel the tightening of your chest, just facing that blank computer for that project that you want to do. And then your hand, almost on autopilot, reaches out for your phone. If this has happened to you, just say, that's me. You reach out to your phone and you tell yourself, okay, let me just check WhatsApp status. Let me just scroll a little on, TikTok, and then I will start writing the proposal after that. And you think you wasted just a little bit of time. Has that happened to you? You have this thing to do. And then when you start, you discover that, you're just staring at a blank screen and you don't know how to begin. And you say, okay, let me just look at TikTok for a few minutes. Now, you didn't just waste a bit of your time. That's what I'm trying to explain. So understand the significance of this thing I've just explained, because it happens to me too. Every time that happens, 3 things are happening in your brain. Every time you face the computer to do work, and then that task seems hard, and you say, okay, let me just browse a little. So there are 3 things happening in your brain. You need to understand it. The first one is that you weaken that part of your brain that plans, that focuses, and holds your long-term goals. Please understand this. This thing I've just described, reaching out to your phone, and then sometimes people do it first thing in the morning. They're reaching out to their phones to start scrolling, to start looking at Facebook, start reading emails, or watching WhatsApp status. It's so harmful. It's so harmful to our soul. So the first thing is you're weakening that part of your brain that is responsible for planning, for focusing, and then for holding your long-term goals. Now, there's a second thing that happens in your brain. You strengthen the part of your brain that demands instant comfort and escape. And you need to understand this. So while you're weakening one, you are strengthening the other part. So there's a part that wants instant comfort, instant gratification, instant escape, because you quickly want to escape from the hard task ahead of you. And then number 3, you teach your nervous system a rule without knowing that you're teaching it a rule. What does that rule say? That rule says, when I feel discomfort, I run. And that's what you're teaching your brain. So keep these 3 things in mind that I have said, because that's what goes on. And you see, by the time you do it for 10 years, like this gentleman I'm talking about, he's literally lived his life like that. And then every time I try to help him, he says, oh, this is generational. My father was like that. My uncles were like that. My grandfather was like that. My siblings are like that. It's just a generation of procrastinators because they've done it so long. So when you do it so long, it doesn't just steal your time. It reshapes your identity. It reshapes who you become. So this video is called What Happens to Your Brain When You Procrastinate. And I want you to see procrastination not just as a personality flaw, it's a wiring problem that you can fix. Okay, so if you wire your house, I've been in a house where the wiring was wrong. There was no earthing or something, or there was no neutral. The electrician was trying to explain to me. It was terrible. So sometimes, water somewhere, some place gets wet, and then there's some shocking. And then sometimes you plug an appliance. When you turn it off, the appliance is still on. All kinds of horrible things. So procrastination is like that. It's a wiring problem. And this is why it is very serious. This is why you don't treat procrastination with kids' gloves, like they say. So at the end, you will understand why your brain literally chooses procrastination behind your back. That's what you're going to understand. Number two, you will understand the hidden changes happening in your emotional and decision-making centers. So I need you to highlight those two things. So I'm laying the background and the context. So there are two parts that fight each other, and two parts that you must hold in tension. There's the emotional part of your brain, and then there's the decision-making part of your brain. So whenever you procrastinate, there's some changes, hidden changes happening, in those two. And you will also get I'll give you a simple science-backed plan to rewire your brain out of procrastination. And so I'm going to teach you a plan. I've used an acronym, BRAIN, to help you remember that plan. So even if you've been a chronic procrastinator for 20 years, this is going to be the last evening of your procrastination. So pay close attention. And why I talk about it, as an executive coach, I've worked with literally hundreds of people, executives, CEOs, managers, senior managers, and all kinds of people. And I find that this is the same. We're all sort of wired the same. And these are very highly talented, high-performance individuals. But often you find that little things like procrastination, little things like self-doubt, little things like the feeling of not being enough is still frustrating the performance of high-flying CEOs and then individuals. So let's start with the fight happening in your head every time you say, I will do it tomorrow. So let me explain what's going on in your brain. Okay, so the neuroscientists tell us, and by the way, my first degree was in zoology, so we did quite some bit of neuroscience and then the brain, not just of humans, because in zoology, you study not just the human brain, you study the brains from protozoa through different kinds of invertebrates, mollusks, to birds, reptiles, and then when you come even to the mammal family, you are studying the brain of dogs and all that. I mean, it was very intense. So neuroscientists tell us that procrastination is essentially a tug of war between two major systems in your brain. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible. So the system number one is your prefrontal cortex. So somebody can type it in the comment section. Don't stress too much about the big name. Don't even stretch too much about it. But I will explain. So there's the prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain. And it's this part of your brain that is the rational planner at the front of your brain. That's responsible for planning, for coordinating. So that's the part that says, let's write the report. That's the part of your brain that says, let's build the business. That's the part of your brain that says, let's do the hard thing because the future will thank us. A few years ago, not long ago, I at the African Leadership University of Rwanda, in Rwanda, Leadership University in Rwanda. I don't know if there's anybody from Rwanda here at the moment. Now, when I entered the hall, I saw something amazing and inspiring. You know, it was like a banner splashed along the entire length and width of the wall. And it had only 3 words. It had only 3 words. I've never forgotten the imagery. Whoever designed that was genius. It had 3 words on the banner: do hard things. Please type it in the comment section. It will save somebody. That's an aha moment for someone. Do hard things. So your prefrontal cortex, so it's your battle center. That's the center, the part of your brain that says, let's do the hard thing today. And you found out that procrastination is essentially running away from doing hard things. So that's your prefrontal cortex. When you do hard things, your future will thank you. I remember Jim Rohn used to say, I don't know whether it was Jim Rohn or Brian Tracy, because when I was growing up, I listened a lot to both men. So they said, if you are easy on life, life will be hard on you. But if you go hard on life, life will be easy for you. Very true. Very true. So that's the first part, that's the first system, the first part of your brain involved in the tug of war. The second system in your brain is called the limbic system. And it doesn't hurt to learn some of these things. Some of these numbers, just acquire the vocabulary. So somebody already wrote prefrontal cortex. That's the first system. That's the system that makes the decisions. The system that says, let's write the report. Let's write the book. Very correct. Yes, so that's the limbic system. That is the second system. Now, this is the emotional, survival-driven part of your brain. You really have to understand this. So this is the emotional, the survival-driven part of your brain. So it only cares about one thing. Your limbic system only cares about one thing. And what is that thing? How do I feel right now? It only cares about how it feels right now. It wants comfort. It wants ease. It wants pleasure. And it wants it immediately. Or like they say in Nigeria, now. That's the limbic system. So that's the part that cares about comfort, about ease, about pleasure. So while the other one is the one that says, let's do hard things, this one is the one that says, let's relax. There's also something they say in Pidgin English. It says, let's relax, man no die, man no rot. Now, I haven't heard it in a long while, but basically, let's go and take a drink, This problem will solve itself. Problems don't solve themselves. Okay, so that's the limbic, those are the two systems, the prefrontal cortex and then the limbic system. So when you plan your goals, when you create your vision and ambition, your prefrontal cortex is in charge. When you are supposed to execute, the limbic system, unfortunately, often hijacks the steering wheel. So that's where the tug of war happens. So you feel even a little discomfort, maybe some boredom, maybe even fear of failure, maybe it's confusion when you face a task. Because I've been in that situation many years ago. I wanted to do my website. I attended all kinds of courses and programs. That's in the mid to late 2000s, And then I had big books and things like that. It was so difficult combining it with my work and trying to do a website. It was so confusing. So when you feel like that, you feel overwhelmed, your limbic system says, this feels bad. Escape, reward, now. So that's the favorite language of the limbic system. Escape, reward, now, not tomorrow. The limbic system wants the reward right now. Okay? So because it says, this feels bad. And this is where it gets very dangerous, because your limbic system has a best friend called dopamine. Okay, please, somebody type dopamine. Somebody type dopamine. This is very, very important. You need to understand this chemical and its relationship to procrastination. Yes, Festus says that fear of failure also causes it. Very true. Okay, fear of failure. All right, dopamine. You need to understand dopamine. You actually need to read up a lot about dopamine. See, dopamine is the brain's reward system. It's the reward chemical. So when you scroll social media and then you're watching all those comedy skits, you're watching Netflix and things like that, when you eat comfort food, you head straight to your refrigerator. When you feel like, hey, chocolate, have a glass of wine and things like that. Or when you watch something entertaining instead of working, you get a quick dopamine hit. And what does it do? Dopamine trains your brain. That dopamine hit trains your brain to say, avoiding the hard thing and doing the easy thing feels good. Let's do more of that. That's what dopamine is quietly training your brain to say, look, avoiding the hard thing and doing the easy thing feels good. And then how many people recognize poverty in that attitude? How many of you recognize poverty in that very mindset? Avoiding the hard thing and doing easy things feels good. Let's do more of that. See, and that's what so many people in this generation, do. They avoid hard work. So they look for quick ways to make big money. And once they make the money, they go to hotels with women. I mean, I hear these stories every day. They go to hotel, they book hotels for weeks at a time. And then they finish all that money. No hard work. Because they have trained their brain for dopamine. And this is also what happens where people, smoke all kinds of things. They smoke to relieve tension, to find that dopamine rush so that they don't have to face the reality. So what looks like just 10 minutes on Instagram, it's not just 10 minutes on Instagram. You know what it is? It is your emotional brain, 1. Your rational brain, 0. Okay? Yes, Festus. Yeah, dopamine trains your brain saying avoiding the hard thing and doing easy thing feels good. Let's do more of it. That's what dopamine does. Okay? Now, by the time you now do that hundreds of times, and you literally strengthen that neural pathway of avoidance, because each time you do that, you're creating a road. If you just imagine like creating a road, using a bulldozer to build a road through mountains, or to put a railway through mountains, and then you're clearing the forests, you're paving the ground, and all that. That's what you do. So each time you do it, you pave a road, you pour concrete on that road, and so by the time you've done it hundreds of times, you find that you have created a neural pathway of avoidance, always avoiding crucial conversations, always avoiding doing the hard things, always avoiding doing the serious things. And it affects people in their finances. Because it's that same dopamine that says when money hits your account, that dopamine is screaming, spend it, spend it, spend it, spend it now, 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 right now, spend it, buy this, buy that. But it is your rational brain that will say, take this money. This month is a very good month for buying stocks. And I'm saying this literally. You're finding stocks at a discount that's so astonishing. And then somebody gets money right now. And then there's a dopamine hit to, listen, buy good clothes, go for this wedding, buy the special clothes. They have these special clothes and things like that. I don't do that. So that's what a lot of people do. They want to have it right now, the dopamine hit right now, but then the future is suffering. So over time, research shows that chronic procrastinators have differences in the brain regions responsible for planning, for self-control, for emotion regulation, especially in the parts of the prefrontal cortex that we talked about, and their connections with the emotional centers. So chronic procrastinators have actually, literally changed their brains. Isn't that scary? And you see, you need your brain for everything. You need your brain for everything. And your brain is a command and control center for your success. Your brain is a command and control center for wealth. Of course, your brain, your heart, for wealth, for all that. And so, by the time you disfigure it, you reshape it, you diminish the parts responsible for planning, for self-control, and all that, then you find that you have also totally rewired your future. Every time you procrastinate, you are voting for your emotional short-term brain to be the boss. Think about that. So every minute you procrastinate, you are voting for the emotional part of you to be boss. And every minute that you procrastinate, you're damaging brain cells. Do you see how difficult, do you see how dangerous this is? Okay? And then, so many people think that procrastination, I used to think too that procrastination was laziness. But I'm surprised because researchers have done a lot on procrastination. Look, if you go online and see researches, that's what I did myself. I read so much on procrastination, on willpower, on the prefrontal cortex, on emotional regulation, on the limbic system, and all that. Because what sets you free is awareness of the truth. That's why I'm saying that the best way to treat this thing for people who suffer procrastination is to actually go from the root, from the awareness, because the education about how it actually happens will set you free. So I read so much research on procrastination, on willpower, and things like that. In fact, one of the researches I read, I think it was, I forget because I read so many things, but I think it was a gentleman in one university in Canada who was researching willpower and even found out that willpower fluctuates within the day. That literally our willpower goes down from morning, and then as you're approaching afternoon, and then into the evening, and then you are drained. Very interesting. So for years, many people thought that procrastination was just bad time management or laziness. See, but the body of research has proven otherwise, that procrastination is actually about emotion regulation. Please type it. Somebody type it in the comment section. Emotion regulation. And so let me translate that for you. So what this means is that when you look at a task and then you feel, oh, I might fail. Somebody had mentioned it earlier, fear of failure. Or you feel, this is so confusing. Or, oh my goodness, this is so boring. Or, people will judge me for my work. If I post this thing, people will judge me. And I don't know the kind of comments I'm going to get. So your brain labels that task as emotionally threatening. So when you look at it that way, it labels it as, oh, this is an emotional threat. This is unpleasant. So instead of dealing with that discomfort, your brain tries to repair your mood. Are you following? Okay, so if you're following, just type following, because I want to make sure that you are following. So if you say, for instance, I feel anxious now, let me do something that feels better now. That's procrastination. So you procrastinate not because you don't know what to do. Have you discovered that? Many times you procrastinate on the things that, it's not that you don't know what to do. You actually procrastinate many times on the things that you know what to do. But because in that moment, your brain cares much more about fixing your feelings than fixing your future. And you have to understand it from that level. Will you fix your feelings or fix your future? That's why I've said so many times in the live sessions that you should follow your plan, which is here, prefrontal cortex, and not your mood. Because your mood swings. Your mood will take you nowhere. So follow the plan, not the mood. So when you get into that situation, you have to ask yourself, it's a very important decision. Am I fixing my feelings or am I fixing my future? Procrastination is reduced to making that decision. At this particular time, what I've decided to do now, to watch Netflix, to scroll, am I fixing my feelings or am I fixing my future? So it's not about being weak, it's your self-control system losing to your emotional impulses. Okay, so when you say, I'll do it tomorrow, what you're really saying is, I'm trading my future peace for present relief. I'm shaking as I'm talking about that because many of us live by that paradigm. Many of us are doing exactly that. And you really need to go back after listening to this to observe your own emotions and to observe the way you've been living your life. And ask yourself, the way I've been living my life, have I been trading my future peace for present relief? I don't have to buy a car right now. I need a car. I need a car because I don't have a car. I just have a truck, but that's a huge truck that's a sort of truck you use for construction or for something, not the one you drive around town. Because God asked us to give out our car, the vehicle that I used to move around in town. Now, a few months ago, I had the money to buy the car. I had the money, the bulk money. I did a project. Bulk money came to buy a good car. And I had to ask myself, do I want to trade my future peace for present relief? And you know what I did? I took all that money and plunged it into an investment. So I'm talking to you, that investment, that money, just within a period of 4 to 6 months, has generated an average of 70% return. So at some point, in 2-3 years, I can actually buy a car from the profit, from the capital appreciation, from the dividends of that investment. So, I have delayed gratification for 3 to 5 years because I decided I can have a little discomfort right now. I can still use the truck to drive around, and I can join the tricycles. I can join taxi. I could take Uber. We see emotional regulation in action because I let my prefrontal cortex to lead in that decision. I made a brilliant decision, financial decision, and I haven't died. And only to discover that I didn't really need that car, that bad. But if I had spent that money at that time, I would have bought the car. Not only would I have bought liability, because I have to be fueling the car, maintaining it every month, but that would have been the end of that money. That money would not have multiplied, compounded, yielded something of itself. Okay? Is this making sense to somebody? Okay, so when you say I'll do it tomorrow, what you're really saying is I'm trading my future peace for present relief. So short term, your mood improves for a moment, but long term, what you're going to have? You're going to have stress, you're going to have guilt, and you're going to have self-hate. All these things will multiply. Okay, so let's see what happens in the procrastinator's brain. But let me just keep it simple. So your CEO brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, is supposed to guide you toward long-term goals. All right, somebody type long-term goals. Procrastination is the enemy of long-term goals. I'm sure you figured it out by now. Procrastination is the enemy of your long-term goals. So your CEO brain, that's the prefrontal cortex, is supposed to guide you toward long-term goals. And then your emotional brain, the limbic system, including the amygdala, screams about fear, about boredom, about discomfort, about difficulty. So in chronic procrastination, the emotional brain keeps winning the argument. Your emotional brain keeps winning the argument, and that is dangerous. Okay, so over time, your brain now learns, oh, when I feel discomfort, I run. When I run, I get instant dopamine and temporary relief. So running is good. That is a brain level habit loop, and it gets worse. So your brain does this crazy calculation. It says, do hard work now for a reward in 6 months, and that is low motivation, because you are going to be working and working very hard, and then you're not seeing immediate result, versus scroll now, feel good now. So you see, the first one is low motivation, doing hard work for a reward in 6 months. I remember, should be 2018ish. I signed up for a coaching program with Russell Brunson. I don't know if you know Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guy. Very brilliant guy, brilliant marketer. And then Russell challenged us. He came out one day, he said, listen, if you publish one video or one blog or one post a day for 365 days, that he said he was challenging us that your income will 2x or 3x. That's hard. Being consistent every day. So, and if you let your limbic system guide you or to take the driver's seat, you wake up some days you won't feel like. And then I remember I said, okay, I'll take up that challenge. I wasn't always this confident facing, holding my camera. I was too self-conscious and things like that. So, and I remember when I started that challenge, posting one video a day for 365 days, I did it. And he was right. My income tripled that year. He was right. But if I didn't let my prefrontal cortex to lead, I would never have done it. Because some days I wake up and I don't feel like doing a video. And I'm like, oh, people will be judging me. Okay, how would they see? And I'll look at myself, it doesn't look good. Should I post? Should I not post? Then sometimes, I say, okay, look at my nasal hair. I didn't trim it. I forgot to trim it. And then I will discuss, throw away that video. I have to do it again. And then sometimes I will do up to 8 takes to do one video. But I persisted, and I did it. So you do hard things and preserve the future versus, so there was low motivation versus scroll now, pick up TikTok, scroll social media, follow the Donald Trump Epstein files news, follow G20 in South Africa, follow, and for those of you in Nigeria, follow VDM and MC Jello, follow useless, stupid news. And then before you know it, you have spent 2, 3, 4 hours only waking up or standing up from the bed where you are scrolling to go and grab something to eat in the freezer or in the fridge, which is another dopamine. And then you scroll until you literally fall asleep. You're training your brain, and then the future doesn't look good for that sort of training. Okay? Because you are now giving your brain the wrong formula. So, procrastination trains your brain to prefer short-term mood over long-term goals. Please understand this. Really internalize it so that you understand the structure, so that you'll be able to change it. Procrastination strengthens the avoidance pathways. Remember the things I talked about. Because each time you procrastinate, you're building a highway, a procrastination highway in your brain. So procrastination strengthens that avoidance pathway, and it weakens your planning pathways. Planning. Some people have, so chronic procrastinators, such that they can't even plan their lives. I meet people who can't even plan. You ask them, okay, what's your plan for the next 12 months? We are entering a new year. What's your plan for the next 12 months? What's your plan for your finances? What's your plan for your career? What's your plan for your relationship? For your parenting? What's your plan? For the children's, whatever. So, and people can't do it. And if you look at people who struggle to make plans, you'll find that they have avoidance pathways, that they are chronic procrastinators, because procrastinating destroys that planning pathway, that place that allows you to plan and to focus on it. Now, the other thing, according to research, is that procrastination increases guilt, it increases shame and stress, which then create more unpleasant emotions, which now trigger more procrastination. I've met people who look back at their lives. They're in their 50s, and they say they look back at their lives, and then they say there's nothing to show for it. They've worked hard. They don't know that they say there's nothing to show for it, and then they look at the people that they started with, and then they say nothing to show for it. So there's guilt, there's shame, there's a feeling of I really haven't spent my time well over the years. Okay, so if your brain can be trained into that loop, the good news is that it can also be trained out of it. It can be trained out of it. So, and that's what I want to talk about now. So I want to give you 5 steps to a 5-step brain-based protocol to stop procrastinating. This was what helped me. So I'm putting it together for you. So you can think of this as how to outsmart your own brain. That's the way you really need to think about it. So I will use an acronym, which is BRAIN protocol. BRAIN protocol. So each of the letters stands for something. Okay, so B stands for break emotional wave. R stands for reduce the task load. A stands for activate a tiny action. I stands for install a fast reward. N stands for normalize the new identity. So I'll break each of them down. So let's start with B. B stands for break the emotional wave. So remember that procrastination is mood repair. So step 1 is not to work harder necessarily. Step 1 is to catch the feeling. Please type it in the comment section. Catch the feeling. And then thank you, Augustine, because I see you have been capturing aha moments and capturing what you were saying. That's the best way to learn. You are not likely to forget it because you are capturing that. And by the way, if you've been watching and you have not subscribed to the channel, that's a good time to do that. I will appreciate your subscribing to the channel, and also share it and then like it, love it. If you love what you're hearing, please do go ahead and send your love. and then share it. So it helps the algorithm to spread it to those people who would need it. So step one is to catch the feeling, okay? The moment you notice yourself about to delay, about to pause, about to give yourself excuse, about to say, about to give yourself excuse, the moment, you normally, there's a window, you catch yourself saying that when a task is before you. What you need to do is to pause and then ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? So that's about catching the feeling. The moment you notice yourself about to delay, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? So it might be, and then, just give some honest answers like, I'm anxious, this won't be good enough. I'm anxious that my boss won't approve of this. Or I'm bored. Or I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Yeah, so many people want to start a business, for instance, and they are really overwhelmed. They don't know exactly what to start. What's the first thing to do? So just naming the emotion calms the amygdala, it calms that limbic system, and gives your prefrontal cortex a chance to come back online. Because the problem with the limbic system is that it can literally hijack every part of the brain. This is why pornography, that's exactly what it does. Because it overstimulates and over-leverages that part of our brain. And once it is there, nothing else goes inside. Okay, so, but when you do this, it allows your prefrontal cortex to come back online. All right? So when you name it, you are no longer swimming inside the emotion. You are standing on the shore looking at it. So you be an observer of your emotion. I find that as a coach, I coach myself, I coach other people, I also have coaches. One of the things I've discovered is, you can call it metacognition, just being aware of how I'm feeling at any particular time and naming my feeling. Like when I'm feeling angry, just removing myself from the anger. I'm becoming an observer of the anger. So I'm observing the anger. I remove myself from the anger. That's one. And then it allows me to have power over that anger. So learning how to observe and to name your emotions, very, very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. So when I'm feeling bitter because of the way someone has treated me, I separate myself, from the situation, from the bitterness, and I'm observing it. And then it allows me to separate myself from bitterness, because bitterness should not find its way in me. And I have power over it. I can deal with it. I can reshape it into forgiveness, for that person. So that's step number 1B. The R stands for reduce the task load. Because your brain hates vague, huge, foggy tasks. If you just say to your brain, write a book, whoa, it's foggy. It's overwhelming. If you just say to your brain, fix my life, that's huge. It's not specific. It's not, your brain doesn't understand what you're talking about. If you say, okay, brain, build my business, it doesn't understand it. So those are not tasks. They sound more like threats to the brain. And your limbic system doesn't like threats, because once it's a threat, it will scream, run! So what do? You counter that threat by chopping the task down until your brain can say, okay, that's not so scary. So instead of saying, for instance, write a book, I can just say, write 2 paragraphs, or write 3 paragraphs, or write 1 paragraph in the morning, or something like that. So that is easier for the brain. And so the brain doesn't see that when you've reduced the task, it doesn't see it as a threat anymore. Okay. So, and instead of telling the brain to organize my whole life, I can just say, set a 10-minute timer to clear this desk, to clear the things I have, on my table right now. So you're reducing perceived threat and uncertainty, which is exactly what your emotional brain was panicking about. So don't overwhelm your brain with heavy loads, because that is going to activate the limbic system to start screaming. And then and when the limbic system takes over, it starts looking for relief, for dopamine. It starts scrolling, and by the time you finish scrolling for 2 hours, you haven't fixed your life, you haven't written a book, and you haven't started your business. A stands for activate a tiny action. Activate a tiny action. So here is where you begin to rewire. You're going to teach your brain a new rule. And what is this rule? When I feel discomfort, I do a tiny action. Anyway, it's similar to what the title of a book I've seen somewhere. I was at a conference, or somebody said it. I don't know what is the title of a book, but a lady was speaking at a conference I had in San Diego in California. And then she said, feel the fear, or something like that. Feel the fear and do it anywhere, or anyway. Okay, so feel the fear. You can still keep your fear, but go ahead and do it. So this is similar. Activate some action. Don't try to be brave. We're just trying to build a reflex to procrastination. So your rule becomes something like, I only have to do 5 minutes. I only have to do 3 push-ups. I only have to make 1 phone call. Just a tiny action. A tiny action. I only have to call my mom. I only have to call the supervisor. I only have to, small action. I only have to make an egg for the breakfast or something. So because once you start, your brain shifts state. It's like, just get your brain into gear 1, first of all. The prefrontal cortex wakes up. The emotional threat goes down. And then often you find yourself, you keep going. You keep going. Like instead of, I bought a book at the airport a couple of months ago at the airport in the US. And that book is Catch 22. So what I'm telling you now happened. Exactly that happened. So I bought this book and I said, okay, I was going to finish reading it on the plane. That I'll finish. I bought it before I boarded. I said, okay, I'll finish it before, I come back. Do you know I've not finished the book today? I've not finished. And that was a couple of months ago. I've not finished it because of this thing I'm telling you. So it was so overwhelming for the brain. I just needed to activate a small action. So I could have said, okay, every time I wake up, if I'm sleeping, I hardly sleep in the plane, I write. I do a lot of writing. I will read 2 pages or something. So it's no longer threatening. So that is activate small action, because once you start the small action, you will notice that your brain will now just keep going. So something you thought, okay, you will only do for 5 minutes, before you know it, you are still going on 2 hours after. I stands for install a fast reward. Remember dopamine? Your limbic system has been trained to get dopamine from escape, from running, from scrolling, from snacking, from distractions. We are going to steal dopamine back through this particular step. So after your tiny action, you reward yourself. So you can tick a box on a visible tracker. You can put, like I have my post-it notes always. The satisfaction I get that after I've done a task, I cross it. It's incredible. It's a dopamine stimulator for the brain. Or sometimes even to say, when you complete a task, I did what I said I would do. Yippee! I've completed it. So sometimes just standing up from my desk and, changing my physiology, saying, yippee! I have concluded it. That's a reward, for the brain. It's small, but it's very satisfying, because what you're doing now, you're teaching your brain that starting the hard thing equals reward. Starting it equals reward. So over time, that becomes addictive in a good way. N stands for normalize the new identity. And this is very important, normalize the new identity. Because if you keep saying to yourself, like the man I was talking about when I started, he keeps saying, I'm a procrastinator. Procrastination runs in the family. My father was a procrastinator. My uncles were procrastinators. My siblings, everybody's, So that's identity. Anytime, anything that comes after once you use I am, anything that comes after that, you really need to be very careful, because that's identity statement. So if you keep saying, I'm such a procrastinator, your brain will fight to stay consistent with that identity. That's why it's important. So instead, you can start using new language. You can start saying things like, I'm learning to be the kind of person who starts, who executes quickly. I'm learning to be the kind of person, who takes action, who gets results quick. I'm becoming someone who does things on time, So install that new identity for yourself. I may feel the urge to delay, but I'm not a procrastinator. Don't give yourself that label. I'm not a procrastinator. I'm a starter. So identity drives behavior, and behavior rewires the brain. So every time you show up for 5 minutes, you are not just doing a task. You are actually casting a vote for your new identity. Okay. So by now, I am sure that you've become familiar with how procrastination shows up in your brain, because you cannot actually deal with procrastination if you don't understand how procrastination actually changes your brain, so that you can now rewire that. Okay, so that's about procrastination tonight. And so I'm trusting that you will never procrastinate again, using all the things that you've learned in tonight's session, titled, What Happens to Your Brain When You Procrastinate. All right. So the next couple of minutes, I would like you to tell me what your aha moment was today. What made your day in today's session? What was your aha moment? Okay, everybody, what was your aha moment? What made it today? What is one thing that you're leaving this place to go implement immediately, or to teach somebody? Yeah, and I see a comment that Festus had made, a note he had captured earlier. Learning how to observe and to separate yourself from anger. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, very, very important, learning how to observe and to separate yourself from anger and from other emotions is important, because you are not your emotion. So just knowing how to separate yourself from anger, knowing how to separate yourself from lust, because you are not lost. Knowing how to separate yourself from malice, knowing how to separate yourself, to be an observer of those things. That's when you actually become the boss. It gives you such spiritual power that, will just blow your mind, when you are not a slave to anger, when you are not a slave to lust, when you are no longer a slave to bitterness, to jealousy, to envy, because you observe those things. You don't assume their identity, because you're observing them, from a plane. And then because you're observing them, you can master them. You become their boss. You can deal with envy. You can deal with all those things. But if you are one with it, and then you identify with it, it's difficult to deal with something that you're identifying with, because it becomes an identity problem. Please, Coach, tell us how to overcome procrastination promoted by relationship, friends, or family. I do not understand that question, Augustine. So if you could make it a bit clear, I'm not sure what, how to overcome procrastination promoted by relationship. So you can actually use the brain, no matter what it is, you can actually use the brain framework to deal with it. Just use that framework. Listen to this again and then apply that. Okay, Festus aha moment. Festus says procrastination damages some cells of your brain. Yeah, it is not inherited. Procrastination rewires the brain. Fantastic aha moment. Okay, Raimi Taiwo says, is there any linkage between being lonely and brain functioning? If yes, how do one overcome this? Is there any relationship with being lonely and brain functioning? The brain is actually wired to be social. So we have, that's part of why we have the emotional center in our brains. We also have what we call the mirror neuron. The mirror neuron happens, it fires when, for instance, you're watching something on television or you're watching something online, and then you're watching something online, and then a hammer or a car door, a lady is coming out of the car. The guy in front did not know that her hand was still holding the frame of the door, and then he bangs it shut, and then she screams. You feel it immediately. Mirror neuron is what happens when you are watching a soccer game and then somebody almost wants to score, or didn't score. You jump up, in fact you kick the ball with him as he's kicking. So we are wired, as social beings made in God's image. We are wired to be there for one another. And there are also some brain chemicals like oxytocin, and a couple of them that help us to create connection with other people. So how to deal with it? You need to consider the root cause of your loneliness. Why are you lonely? And then address it from the root cause. Why are you lonely? And then sometimes, loneliness is a choice. Loneliness is a choice. And then, you see, being alone and being lonely are different things. And then loneliness sometimes is a choice. It's also a self-esteem thing, a self-image thing. When you are lonely because you don't feel valued, you don't value yourself, and because you don't value yourself, you don't believe that other people will value you. So what happens? You retreat into your shell. So maybe where to start dealing with loneliness is to start recognizing your value, to start, loving yourself, If something as simple as every day you wake up, you say, I love myself. And also to say, God loves me unconditionally. I love myself. And when you begin to feel great about yourself, and then when you actually love yourself, it's going to be difficult to be lonely. It's going to be very difficult to be lonely. Okay? So acknowledge your value. Receive God's love, for yourself, because He does love you. And then acknowledge the fact that you are valuable. Your life is valuable. Your life is very meaningful. And then when you begin to see the value in yourself, automatically other people will start being drawn to your value. And then you build a social connection. So I hope that helped. Margaret says, I think this is what make me not to be able to read books. I really don't have problem buying books. Okay, that's procrastination. So you can use the brain formula to break it down into small steps that don't feel like a threat to your limbic system. Okay, Augustine says, my aha moment is procrastination is an enemy of long-term thinking. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then over time, it also kills the ability to plan, the ability to visualize one's future, and then, the willingness to execute those plans. Augustine, my question is how to one handles how to handle procrastination that is a result of association with some friends or family who are chronic procrastinators. Um, Thank you very much. I just got a gift. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know. All right. So, now, when it comes to dealing with procrastination, you don't want to be emotional about it. You don't want to be emotional about it. Because you see, the people you have around you matter a lot. The people you have around you matter a lot. And someone says that we are usually the average of our 5 closest acquaintances. You don't want to be emotional about it. There are definitely extended family people that I can't relate to. They are my family. I do things with them, but they can't come into my inner circle. They can't, whatever. I can't have a chronic procrastinator as a very, very close person, whether family or friend or something, except the person is actually open to growth and open to deal with it. So don't be emotional about such things. Be very intentional about the people you are around, you allow around you as your inner circle. Okay, Precious says, my aha moment is activate a tiny action. Okay, perceive the task, a small one. Okay, very good. Okay, yes, love yourself. You will never feel lonely. Absolutely, absolutely. A dawn of peace. Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody was asking when the live session holds. It's every weekday, 8 p.m. GMT +1. Every weekday, Mondays to Fridays. So this is Friday and we're going into the weekend, and I'm going to see you on Monday. Don't procrastinate during this weekend, and whatever happens, I love you. Keep showing up, because you have no idea what's coming your way next. And I'll see you exactly same time, Monday evening. Good night.